representing Delta North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Niger Delta on the confirmation of the appointment of the nominees mentioned by the Senate leader as chairman and members of the Board of Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, in accordance with Section 2.2 of the NDDC Act 2000. I so move.
Senator Clifford Odia, representing Edo Central Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Niger Delta on the confirmation of appointment of the following nominees as chairman and members of the Board of Niger Delta Ministry. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those against saying nay, the ayes have it. Please present the report here.
Distinguished colleagues, you will recall that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, at its sitting on Tuesday, 29th October 2019, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for the confirmation of the nomination of the chairman and members of the governing board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, and referred same to the Committee on Niger Delta for further legislative action. The committee requested for the credentials, including the necessary security confirmation for all the nominees, and resolved to conduct an open screening on Thursday, 31st October 2019. The committee also resolved to be guided during the screening by the following modalities: that the necessary document for each nominee be secured before the commencement of the screening, that the screening should be held in the open. Distinguished colleagues, all the nominees that presented themselves were screened and their credentials are contained here in the report. With the permission of Mr. President, I can go to the findings, Mr. President.
Yes, please.
Through the screening exercise conducted on the nominees, the committee finds that the educational qualification and the vast experience of the nominees will impact positively on the development of Niger Delta Development Region. The committee considers nominees qualified to serve on the governing board of the Niger Delta Development Commission and recommended the following nominees for the confirmation of the Senate. 1, Dr. Pius Odubu as chairman of the governing board of Niger Delta Development Commission. 2, Mr. Bernard O. Okumagba as managing director of Niger Delta Development Commission. 3, Engineer Odbong Endem as executive director of projects of the Niger Delta Development Commission. 4, Maxwell Oko as executive director Finance Administration of the Niger Delta Development Commission. 5, Prophet Jones Irue as member representing Delta State on the governing board of Niger Delta Development Commission. 6, Chief Victor Ehiato as member representing Edo State on the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. 7, Nwogu N. Nwogu as member representing Abia State on the Niger Delta Development Commission Board. 8, Theodora A. Allison as member representing Bayelsa State on Niger Delta Development Commission. 9. Victor Ani as member representing Akwa Ibom on the Niger Delta Development Commission. 10. Maurice Ifat as member representing Cross River State in Niger Development Commission. 11. Olubenga Edema as member representing Edo State on the Niger Delta Development Commission. 12. Honorable Uchebu Chidiebere Kiam as member representing Imo State of the National Development Commission. 13. Aisha Motla Mohammed as member representing Northwest Zone on the Niger Delta Development Commission. 14. Shuaibu Zubaru as member representing Northeast Zone on the Niger Delta Development Commission. And finally, Ambassador Abdullahi M. Bagi as member representing the North Central Zone on the Niger Delta Development Commission. Dr. Yembe Nguyen, member representing River State on the NDC board, was absent and could not be screened. Her nomination is therefore not recommended for confirmation. The prayer that the Senate do consider the report of the committee and approve its recommendation. I so move.
Okay, before I ask for any, the last person nominee, Dr. Joy Imebe Nune, that was absent. Was there any correspondence as to her absence?
Your Excellency, first committee met in the open. She was not present, and we asked the special assistant to the president in charge of Senate, that's the liaison officer to the Senate, and he said he communicated to her and that he was expecting that she will come. Then we now said the committee resolved that herself and Aisha Mohammed, who were not there on the Thursday, should be screened yesterday. Yesterday, Aisha Mohammed came with the special assistant to Mr. President, the liaison officer, our distinguished Senator Bajide Omaware, and we asked him again, where is the nominee for River State? And he said, no communication from her.
Did you hear before
Yes,
you?
Mr. Yes,
okay,
Mr. Yes.
okay. All right. Any comments? The minority leader.
Pay you a courtesy call. So let me acknowledge the Deputy Senate President, the Leader of the Senate, the Chief Whip of the Senate, the Deputy Leader of the Senate, the Chief, you have to help me now, Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate, and the Chairman of Third Fund and Tertiary Institution. I just got my admission for 100 levels, so I should have not forgotten your name. Mr. Senate President, we want to thank you for the very warm reception you have accorded us, and timely too. We, as a party, we have naturally been observing the activities of the Senate. Like other Nigerians, we monitor your deliberations. And even at committee level, because to the extent that they are open, we're able to monitor conversations and discussions between various committees on the budget and other matters that the Senate, under your leadership, has been dealing with. But of particular interest to us is to commend you, commend the Senate under your leadership for the way you've handled all the issues and matters coming from the executive so far. I use the word Senate because I recognize that although we have, as a party, majority of the members of the Senate are of our party, but we also acknowledge that the opposition parties are also, for the purpose of the interest of ensuring that the executive and the legislative work harmoniously, have also supported virtually all the policies or issues that have gone before the Senate for deliberation. And it shows that under your leadership, you've been able to cultivate an unusual but very fruitful bipartisan relationship, which we really need for us to work as a government in between elections. So I also want to appreciate those opposition members, especially the PDP and other party and other senators elected on the other political party platform for the bipartisan spirit with which the Senate has functioned so far. It is our hope and prayer that we continue to enjoy this kind of harmonious relationship. It is not a graveyard silence, it's a more of constructive bipartisan cooperation and collaboration for the common good of our nation across party divide. First, beginning with the confirmation of the ministers, we saw the Senate operating as an organic whole, not bogged down by divides. And any other matter that have come before the Senate, we've seen the spirit of bipartisanship. So we thank you for the way you handled the ministerial list and other things that have come before you. But in particular, we think that in moments like this, we are, the world is celebrating negativity more. But I think there are a couple of things that the Senate is doing under your leadership that can be said to be unique. The Senate under your leadership elected in the national interest to deny itself the luxury of attending to any other thing, including personal family matters that will possibly take them out of Abuja or even out of the country, in order to give sufficient treatment at the committee level for of the budget that has been presented to the National Assembly. Knowing that budgets are not formalities, they define the character of government and the direction of government. But the Senate under your leadership are choosing to do what many of us will see as unprecedented, to the extent that we can recollect the past since 1999. I think it is well commended. Not just the APC senators, but the PDP senators who have agreed to, to work with you and deny themselves, the privilege of going to attend to other matters that may well be equally important to each individual senator. It is our hope that going in the way that you have already started, that your promise that the Senate under your leadership will try and deliver the budget and have it before the end of the year, so that we can restore integrity to our budgetary cycle, which is January to December. It is very clear that given the determination that we see, that this will be achieved. And I want to say congratulations, so far, so good. And I think we discussed at the end of the session that usually when things don't go well, people are loudest in criticizing. When they go well, we take it for granted. But we thought that this one is worth acknowledging. But perhaps most outstanding, Mr. Senate President, is the way the National Assembly, under your leadership, has passed into law the amendment to the deep offshore oil quota sharing, promises to increase revenue of Nigeria substantially. Many of us are aware, even while I was still in the Nigeria Labour Congress, completely non-partisan, we know that there have been attempts to amend these laws, but the lobby group, as represented by the IOCs, have appeared to be so strong that they have overwhelmed the National Assembly over the years. And I think it is your credit, Mr. Senate President, that you resisted all those temptations. And on a lighter note, I would say that when the oil company come lobby, the entire environment can be quite oily. And to be able to work fair on oily platforms is a statement of courage, of integrity, of commitment to national interest, and your will to ensure that we put Nigeria's interest first before any other consideration, including even individual temptation. And even on this, we also want to extend the same compliment to the PDP members in the National Assembly, because we didn't hear a discordant voice on this. So, including YPP, all the opposition parties. And it shows that where you have a clear Senate leadership that has the capacity to engage across party divide, and issues are properly articulated, that people can see that what is at stake is not partisan interest or national interest. It is possible to find common ground, to carry everybody along. So that you pass that law under 5 months or so under your leadership is a loud statement about what Nigerians are to expect and what we're already doing in the interest of our great nation. It's our prayer that God will continue to give you courage, wisdom, and all the skill you need to weave everybody to line to ensure that national interest take precedent over and above any other consideration, and that you are able to resist all the temptations arising from the powers that have denied this the country the passage of this law over the years. And I was also excited to see Mr. President, signing into law that act, even in London. I get a couple of implications for this. That, like you, the president recognized that if you can manage it as quickly as you did and come out with such fundamental amendment that has such enormous impact on national revenue, he, as president, also had to be the needful. And I think by signing into law in London, in Nigeria House in London, it shows that wherever the president is, he's presiding over Nigeria. And with the benefit of modern technology and so on, we are past the Mogo Park era. So he's signing it in London for me has also made several statements, namely that wherever national interest is involved, the president is on duty. Wherever he is, he's presiding. And I also want to salute his accepting to the bill, as fastly as he did, and even the Nigeria House in London. Now, why is it necessary to speak to this? Mr. Senate President, people always say that virtually every Nigerian of age knows what our programs are. And that is why the most viable industry in Nigeria are seminars and conferences and workshops. And in every ICAP, you find all kinds of recommendations. There is nothing that Nigerians don't know. What is missing is that level of integrity you require to subordinate your personal interest when the forces are unleashed. To subordinate your personal interest and all temptation and submit to the logic of national interest, even if that will lead to personal deprivation. And it is this difference that I believe the National Assembly, under your leadership, across party divide, has brought to bear. And we thought that Nigerians ought to celebrate you. We as a party celebrate you, celebrate the Senate, celebrate our APC member. We also celebrate the PDP members because we monitor the debate. There is no evidence that there's any party divide. National interest was at play. And so we have come to appreciate you, and I do hope that under your leadership, the Senate will be a formidable national pillar that Nigerians can rely on in our journey to take the nation to the next level. Mr. President, thank you so much for granting us this opportunity.
The Senate leader, the Chief Whip, the Deputy Senate leader, the Deputy Chief Whip, my distinguished colleague. Mr. Chairman, let me, on behalf of the principal officers of the Senate of the APC, welcome you together with the members of our National Working Committee. Chairman, we appreciate this visit, and of course, we'll convey your message to the members of our caucus, and indeed to all the senators. Let me start by saying that I'm just first among equals. As Senate President, you are not a headmaster, you are just elected to preside and coordinate. When on June 11th, senators elected us with my brother, the Deputy President of the Senate, as President of the Senate and the Deputy, it was very clear what the decision was. The decision of the senators was unanimously a bipartisan decision. From that day that we were inaugurated, senators across party lines gave their endorsement for a Senate leadership that should work with everyone. Mr. Chairman, we have from that day ensured that we operate the Senate in a very bipartisan manner. What motivates us, what encourages us, is the fact that we all love Nigeria. Nigeria first, as far as we are concerned, as members of the National Assembly. Of course, our parties provided the platform for us to be here. But all our parties are unanimous on one thing, that Nigeria first, that we must do everything possible to enhance the security of our people, that the economy of Nigeria should work for everybody, every Nigerian, that life should be better for Nigerians, and that poverty or illiteracy or disease do not discriminate between parties. When a disease or an epidemic strikes, or when a kidnapper strikes, he doesn't ask for what your party is, no party identification. So we are bound by our commitment to work together with our colleagues from other parties. You mentioned the screening of ministerial nominees. That was our first test as a Senate. A test for our endurance, a test for our patriotism, and a test for our capacity. We had to shelve our recess by 1 week to stay back to screen the nominees of Mr. President. That was very significant. But there was an angle to it as well. That throughout the screening, we tried not to look partisan, especially our colleagues who are of other parties, PDP and YPP. We screened the nominees and of course confirmed them eventually. We did that to ensure that the president had his team ready for him to start the business of governance. Today, Mr. Chairman, this National Assembly has been a beehive of activities. We decided quite early, in fact, since when we started campaigning for the office of the President of the Senate and the Deputy President of the Senate, we made it part and parcel of our campaign and commitment, really, that if given the opportunity, we'll reverse this very undesirable trend of passing the budget mid-year, and of course, the undesirable repercussions or consequences of implementing that kind of budget. So we say we'll reverse it to January, December. But of course, we have to get the budget presented to us by the executive early enough. We worked so hard with the executive arm of government to ensure that the president presented his budget requests at the end of September or the first week of October. It happened in the first week of October. And I want to take this opportunity to commend Mr. President for working so hard to ensure that he presented his budget request to us at that time. We said we will make October a budget defense month and we suspend plenary. We kept our promise. We created a window, 2-week period for all ministers and head of agencies of government to defend their budget before the Committee of the National Assembly. And we said the window will not be available after 2 weeks. Mr. Chairman, very distinguished members of the National Working Committee, all the MDS defended their budgets within the 2 weeks. What we have this week is the subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee, that is our committees, that are defending their budgets before the Appropriations Committee. And in fact, today is the last day of the budget defense. And as at this morning, majority of our committees have defended their budgets before the Appropriations Committee. We are so pleased. We are so happy. In fact, we are very relieved that this time around, by the grace of God, we are going to get this thing done. So I want to pay tribute to all my colleagues, senators, across all the parties, that this is not a one-man thing. No single person, in fact, a presiding officer is not supposed to have an opinion. A presiding officer simply collates opinions, and the preponderance of opinion is what takes the day or carries the day. So the credit actually goes to our distinguished senators who are not even principal officers. Because as principal officers, we are there because they decided we should be there. So we listened to them. What do you think we should do? Before we decided to suspend plenary, they had to approve of it. When we said only 2 weeks for budget defense by MDS, the senators had to approve of it. And Mr. Chairman, the issue you raised of the amendment to the Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contract Act was a product of the desire of senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and members of the House, not their leaders. We only coordinate, but we have a Senate today that is primed right from the start to deliver to Nigerians. We campaigned, we said we will have a Senate that works for Nigeria. This Senate works for Nigeria indeed. And this is just the beginning of what we intend to achieve. We expect that we pass the budget at the end of this year before the year runs out. But next year, going forward, Mr. Chairman, we have other very compelling, very important and significant legislations. The petroleum industry bill, we have a lot of revenue issues. We intend to look into the legislations on the revenue generating agencies, the scopes of their mandates. We want to deal with this decisively and expeditiously because we believe that the petroleum industry in Nigeria needs to have proper legislative legal framework to ensure that we maintain the businesses that have decided to come to our country. The IOCs have nothing to fear. It's going to be a plain level field. They will have their day to suggest what they think it should be like. But one thing is, we must ensure that Nigeria receives the appropriate revenues and rewards from its endowments. We passed the amendment to this deep offshore and inland basin production sharing contract. Mr. Chairman, it may interest you to know that Nigeria received $216 million only before this amendment. After the amendment, when the act will start to operate, at $55 to the barrel, Nigeria will receive about $1.5 billion. Going up 60, it will be close to $2 billion per annum from 260. That is a monumental quantum leap, actually, of revenue. And we need revenues. We need to have money to develop this country. So we have done something that we are very happy about, that indeed we are proud about. Because, like you have said, it was not easy, but I think the determination of our colleagues in the National Assembly to pass it, no matter what the temptation would be. So it happened. So we want to appreciate all members of the National Assembly, and I'm happy, Mr. Chairman, you also appreciated our colleagues in opposition, the PDP and the YPP. These are partners in progress as far as we are concerned in the National Assembly, and we intend to continue to work with them. Finally, Mr. Chairman, very distinguished members of the National Working Committee, I want to reiterate how committed we are to our party and the ideals the party stands for. We are going to continue supporting the party in whatever way is possible, and will ensure that this platform that has been available to us is continuously supported, so that at least those ideals of making Nigeria better will not suffer in any way, because our party is the one that shows the direction. But of course, as an administration, we cannot afford to be unmindful of the contributions of other people when it comes to national development. Thank you most sincerely on behalf of my colleagues who are here, the principal of I want to thank you once more for this very important visit, and we appreciate our various destinations. Thank you very much.